foster, and it was walking 6 dogs a day was a big part of my life. Anyway, so fast forward, I found Jones outside. And at the time I had 2 challenging dogs that didn't like cats, so I did not plan on keeping him. We actually had another cat at the time, and our house was split up so that she lived upstairs and the dogs were downstairs to keep everyone safe. So I was definitely not planning on having another cat because I didn't like that situation. But Jones was just like, had a whole different personality. He was very bold, and he started the way that our house was set up, he would try to interact with the dogs, and when they lunged and barked at him, he would run back up the stairs, and then he would run down, and eventually they just stopped caring about him. And I was like, wow, can I actually keep this cat? He's got such an amazing personality. And so that was the first thing I realized, that Jones could get along with our dog. So it was possible to keep him. And then he just kept wanting to do everything they did. So that was kind of what got me researching things, because I was like, well, he wants to come for a walk with them. He wants to do the training, and he wants to just be with us all the time. And I wasn't used to that. And so I quickly, went online. I was like, how to walk your cat. And I think the first day I stumbled upon people canoeing with their cats and everything. And a whole world opened up. And so obviously that was kind of fun, just to find out that there were people doing stuff with their cats. But behind the scenes in my house, I was training my dogs every day. And Jones was right there. And then I was like, okay, well, he wants to do this too. He wants their treats. That's the main thing. So I really just started to say, I wonder if I can teach him all the same things I've taught them. And that was basically how it started. And sure enough, I started teaching him, and I was like, he has an incredible aptitude for learning. And so, again, I started looking online, where is cat training? Why isn't this a thing? And actually it was a lot harder to find cat training than it was to find, people doing those outdoor adventures and stuff with their cat. Cat training wasn't very popular. So that kind of, so then I had an account at the time. My Instagram account was Dog Tricks. So I started posting Jones tricks. And then I got a lot of people saying, how did you do that? How did you teach that? And I put together one tutorial, and then I was featured on the Dodo. And then I was starting to see oh, people are interested in this. This is funny. And so at some point I just kind of went all in and started putting more tutorials together, and then eventually opening up cat school.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. I hadn't heard all that backstory before, so it's really interesting to hear about your journey and where you are now. Cat school's huge.
Yeah, Jones really did change everything. I mean, without him, I would have never, discovered clicker training cats. And so, yeah, I really do owe everything to this little black kitten that I found outside.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's see. What are some practical applications for clicker training cats? So not necessarily for adventures, just in general, because I think a lot of people sometimes see the cats doing all the fancy tricks, and that's cool. Obviously, I love teaching my cats the jump through the arms.
Yeah.
But what are some just everyday practical applications besides fancy tricks that people can use clicker training for?
Well, any action. So whether you want sit, down, stay, to keep your cat off the counter, we teach them to stay at a spot. So there are a lot of just basic training that you could do using the clicker. So any of the basic, you kind of think, what would you teach a dog? If you went to a basic training class and you would do why do you teach sit and stay? I mean, those are things you could use to prevent door dashing. To go in a crate. Most people teach their dog to go in a crate. Similarly, we would use that for vet visits, or to go into the car if you crate your cat in the car. I'm trying to think what else we would teach for like a basic dog class, but it all applies to cats. I mean, they're practical skills that they need to know. And the more that they know, the easier it is to manage them or to handle them. And when things like, I think, you know, a lot of times you don't have a problem. And then when you do, you're like, oh, how do I deal with this? But if you've already set the foundation and you have an understanding of, you know, how cats learn and how to reward them, then when a problem arises, oh, my cat is doing this now, you understand how to approach those sort of things. So some people might not have that many problems with their cat, but maybe something will come up down the road, or, you know, a change in the environment, or you move and all of a sudden there's a different scenario. So it's good, you know, I think it's really important to have an understanding of how to use these behaviors to problem solve as well.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear, you know, just about how just simple things like what you would train a dog for, because so many people don't even think about training cats or realize like, oh, I can train my cat to not jump on the kitchen counters, or I can train my cat to sit or, you know, stay in a spot like what you mentioned. And those are such simple things. People train their dogs all the time.
Yeah, like to me, it's I don't. To me, it's just like, well, I mean, I of course my dog wouldn't know these things, so it makes sense that I should also teach my cat. But I get the difference in that. I mean, people when they get cats, I guess they don't kind of think about all. Maybe they get them because they think they're easier than dogs, so you don't have all the same issues. But Jones does have, you know, he comes with a bunch of issues and they need to be managed. He's a high energy cat and he likes to get into stuff, and he does like to go outside, and he will try to DoorDash. So like you do have to have a good understanding of how to handle these scenarios, and the best way to handle them is with training.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, getting the word out about that is so important, because like you said, a lot of people adopt cats thinking that they're low maintenance and so much easier than a cat or than a dog. I don't do anything. And it's like, you should be doing those things.
Yeah, you should be doing it. And also I think the hard part is when people, like what I hate seeing, what makes me sad is when people say, you know, my cat does this, and you know their relationship is deteriorating because of it, but because they think cats aren't trainable, they don't kind of troubleshoot and think, well, what skills could I use to improve my relationship? And then it's just frustration. So it can be a kind of a bad path if people don't understand, oh yeah, wait a sec, my cat is trainable. I can teach them this and that will solve this problem. So, and then there's the whole other reason. Like, I mean, I don't, as Jones is trying to DoorDash right now. I don't, like for me, I don't always focus on so many of the practical things because I do like doing the tricks and stuff.
That's the fun stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. But obviously there's all the bond strengthening and the attention that you teach when you're doing that, and the focus and all that other stuff. So there's like so many different benefits. The practical obviously are important. And then there's all the other stuff that comes along with teaching those things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have one question already. Kaylee is wondering if you have any sort of certification for cat training.
I do not. I have considered something down the road. Right now, my focus is on, you know, just teaching like the average person and who wants to learn how to train their cat, not anyone who wants to go, you know, and work as a cat trainer. Yeah. But I am thinking about it. I just haven't committed to all the requirements. But what I do tell people, if they are interested, is to take the regular course, the beginner, you know, the cat training course that we have, and to follow along on our YouTube channel, because those are the same skills you're going to need. Like you'll just be that much more ahead when I ever do offer a certified cat training program. Part of it is for me is like, I like to think about what will happen down the road with that person. Will they have a job? Will they be able to, you know, work in the field? And I think it's so early in cat training that I want to make sure that if I ever did something like that, I'd be able to say, like, you know, I like the business side of things too. Like, you know, I know from my own experience running cat school, it's not just about cat training. There's a whole business side. So I'd want to make sure before that I kind of, and I think about this all the time too. Like I think, because working as a dog walker, I really felt like that was a valuable service for people. So I think there is room for people to become trainers and do it, but I do think it would be more of a service like that, where a person can have you come into their home and maybe help teach you how to get your cat on a leash, like things like that. So yes, I do think about it all the time, but I would want to make sure I have fully fleshed out something that's realistic, that I think people would have, have jobs, for instance. And it's hard because it's just not as popular as dog training is. And
yeah.
I think it's growing though. Like I don't know though. At the same time, like when people have problems, they.
Hey, Julie, you're muted. I think you muted yourself. Let me see if it says your mic isn't connected. Technical difficulties. Bear with us, everybody. Well, while Julie's getting her mic fixed, I am going to admit that I've had my own technical difficulty for the evening. I had a nice intro video that I had made to go with tonight's episode, and I realized after I played the intro video and started the interview, I hadn't pressed go live. So the video didn't start until about partway through you telling us about how you got started. So
okay, I think I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, so it's going to be technical difficulties.
Oh my God. You're brave for doing these live.
Yeah. There's always something. It's the fun of it. It keeps us on our toes.
Anyway, I think I was just saying, I love the idea of a program. I'd want to make sure that if I, had people come in, that I'd have a place, I'd know that they could get jobs after, because I think most people would want to, and I'd want to make sure. So I know it seems crazy, but because I've been working in the pet care field for so long, I can't ignore that other part. It's not just about giving people cat training skills. It's about giving people jobs. And it's just in my brain, because being a dog walker, having a dog walking business, employing people as dog walkers, it's just like, I can't turn that side off. So I think about that side as well, but maybe one day.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we talked a little bit about some of the practical applications of clicker training. What are some things that as adventurers, like those of us who take our cats out on hikes and canoeing and camping and all these things, I know that you can use clicker training for harness and leash training. And I've just started training our newest cat, Griffin, how to jump up on the top of his backpack. Like when I have it on my back, I say load up and he'll jump up. And I've been using clicker training for that. What are some other things like that we can use for adventures?
So anything related to like leash walking. So when you get outside, if you want your cat to move forward versus just staying still or eating grass, can be taught with clicker training. So any action, so leash walking, yes, going in backpack is a great one. I'm working on shoulder cat right now. So I'm teaching Jones to ride on my shoulder, which is like the funnest behavior in the world. I love it. He's hilarious because he now jump. Like I have to watch him because he will just jump out of nowhere on my shoulder. So anything related to recall or calling your cat to come, like if they're stuck in a bush or anything like that. What else? Focus and attention. So if maybe you don't want your cat looking at a certain direction, you want them looking at you, you can work on stuff like that. Triggers, like working with triggers. You can use the clicker to help desensitize your cat to triggers. So dogs, people, other cats. You can use the clicker to make positive associations with triggers as well. That's a huge part of clicker training.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. How would that work?
So this is actually very common knowledge more in the dog training world, but whatever you read in dog training can be applied to cats. So there's something called engage, disengage that we use with dogs. And basically we teach the cat that when they look at the trigger, something good happens. And we call the game look at that. So they look, because most people assume that if you don't want the animal to look at the trigger, but it's actually the opposite, because by looking at the trigger, they can see that it's not that scary. So you have to pick, say you want to get your cat used to dogs. Find a dog who's really non-threatening and teach your cat to look at him. And then they're getting treats for looking at him. So what's happening is they're like, every time I see that, little fluffy dog, I get a treat. Okay, they're starting to get that association. Plus it becomes a fun game because you see their eyes kind of looking and coming and looking back at you. And you can also use it as a gauge for how stressed out they are, because if they won't eat treats, that's telling you, like if they're too focused, that tells you that you're too close to the trigger. So you want to move away. But if they're happily eating treats, you're at that nice distance that they can see the trigger and still eat food. So you're basically using the clicker as a way to reinforce looking at the clicker to reinforce looking at the animal or whatever trigger that they're afraid of. But through that process, you're changing their emotions about how they feel about that. And that's like a big thing, because that's really what we want.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's a really good technique. And we call it, with dogs, we call it engage, disengage. And if people do like a search on that, they'll come up with like a protocol on how to use it for dogs, and it can be applied. I have always wanted to do more information about it for people. I give tidbits and stuff, but definitely not enough, because it is a very powerful tool. And I know that, when you take your cat outside, they have things that they're scared of. And this is a great way to help them get past that.
Yeah, for sure. One of my cats, Kylo Ren, he's triggered by dogs, and so once he sees a dog on the trail, that's usually it for him. He'll get in the back and he doesn't want to come out again. And so he just rides the rest of the time. So I didn't realize you could clicker train with that. And I'm going to have to try that. Thank you.
Yeah. Just before you say, oh, it didn't work, I'll tell you all the details. I'll tell you a few more details. Pick a really easy dog to start with, like a friend's dog. Yeah. So like a small dog. And be at a distance that is far enough away. So usually when training doesn't work, it's because they're too close. And so oftentimes people will say to me, oh, I tried it and it didn't work. Well, you have to be, in order for the training to work, you have to be at a certain distance, far enough away that it's not too scary. And these principles are human principles too. Like if you were trying to help yourself get over going in an elevator, for instance, right? There's two things that you would want to do. One is that you wouldn't want to all of a sudden go in an elevator up to the 12th floor. You'd probably just go in there for a second and come out for a second, right? So like you want to expose the animal to something at a very low level. So that's where I say pick an easy dog. And then the second part is what we call counter conditioning, is you want to change the animal's association by showing them that they get a treat. So the same thing, you could go in an elevator and every time you went in there, you'd eat a piece of chocolate. You'd start to maybe possibly look forward to going into the elevator because you get chocolate, right? So like these principles they apply to all of us and animals. It's the application of them that can be a little bit more challenging, and people tend to rush, oh, I'm going to try it. And they get like, if a big boisterous dog comes at your cat, like it's game over. It's not happening. But if you have like a little, Maltese or Chihuahua or Shih Tzu that can be like, several feet away, enough that your cat sees that he can sit there and nothing's going to happen, that's a great set. We do setups, do a setup. A setup is when you can control the interaction. So if you have a friend, you can say, okay, well, don't come that close. I want to just keep them at a distance. And then over time, you can introduce them a little, closer.
Yeah. So, awesome.
Yeah.
I just want to say, for those of you asking questions, keep them coming for sure. We will get to them. We're going to go through our agenda, and then we'll come back to everybody's questions. So if you have them along the way, definitely drop them in the comments, and we will we'll get to them. Okay, so sort of on track with what we were just talking about with the trigger or the disengage thing. I know that a lot of people struggle with clicker training outside. I know that with Kylo especially, he'll do all the tricks, the high five and all these things inside, but as soon as we go outside, there's so many distractions and things that getting him to focus on me and do any sort of behaviors that I ask him to do is difficult. Do you have any tips for making it easier?
And I think this is all part of like the training journey is people will jump from training indoors to like going on an adventure, but you're missing all the steps in between. So like, can you train your cat on your porch? Can you train your cat in your yard? Can you go from outside to inside and inside to outside and not make it such a big deal? The outside world is just an extension of the inside world, and training happens on both. And I mean, again, going back to a dog analogy, we wouldn't take a dog from a training class and then drop them off at the dog park and say, okay, I expect you to listen. There's all those steps in between. So if I would work with a dog, I would make sure they're well trained in the house, in the yard, on the front porch. But then I would actually go to a tennis court, and I'd shut the and a tennis court is a good place to train because there's hardly any, not so much for a cat because there's nowhere like, I don't know, there's not really places to hide and stuff, which I like knowing that if my cat gets scared, there's bushes and tall grass, and I like that better. But that idea of a very enclosed, quiet area, so like a yard or even a friend's yard could be the next step where it's a new yard, but there's not that much else in there. There's, not a lot of distractions. But so like using the dog example, before I would go to a dog park, I would train that dog in a tennis court and make sure he's really good with no distractions. And then maybe we would have one other dog around. So you have to build the distractions in slowly. You can't just go from inside and then all of a sudden you're in a new environment that's, like an adventure style environment and expect that your cat is going to listen. If you watch my Instagram, I do a lot of training with Jones on the porch, like ton of training. So I'll start in the house and then we'll go on the porch and then we'll stay really close to the house and we'll practice around, the yards nearby. And I don't go very far with him. We have tons of stuff that we can work on right around the house. And that's how I build, his attention and stuff. But yeah, if I did take him somewhere far and we started fresh, like the other thing I would say is I wouldn't expect him to pay attention right away. So I would always let him, can you hear him? He's yelling to go outside right now. Anyway,
we hear you, Jones.
Yeah, Jones. Oh my God. So yeah, if I was to try to get him to listen to me at a park, I wouldn't expect him to listen right away. I would let him explore first too. So like same thing with the dog at a dog park. If I finally did go to the dog park first, I'd let him explore and see all his friends first, and then I would try to get a bit of attention. So you have to also time it properly. If the environment is totally new, you're not going to want to really start expecting too much. But there are like a bunch of training techniques that can be used in more difficult environments. Jones, he's so upset right now. Will you get me this snuffle mat and I'll put treats in it? Sorry, I have to get my husband to help right now.
Yeah, that's fine. We can all understand and relate.
This is like his active time. Like Jones's schedule, I say he likes to be active from 6 a.m. in the morning till 11 a.m. And then he likes from 6 p.m. until 11 p.m.
Oh my gosh.
That's his like favorite time. 12 hours of the day he's on.
That's an active cat.
He has a lot of energy.
He sounds like Griffin. Our Griffin is that way. I swear, like it's rare to catch him napping somewhere. It's like, do you ever sleep? Are you always running around, getting into everything?
And even during the day too. Like sometimes when I think he's like, fast asleep, he shows up and It's like, aren't you supposed to be sleeping now? Like I should have between 11 and 6 at least.
Yes.
He's so aware of our routines too. Like he knows everything when we go out to walk the dog, when we come back, he knows all his opportunities to like go outside. She still has her shoes on. She came back in with the dog. Now I'll go.
My turn.
Yeah. The one other thing I wanted to say though is there's something that we use called the pre-mac principle, which actually everyone's pretty familiar with. It's if you eat your broccoli, then you get dessert. Well, you can do that with cats too. You know, you can do that. If you do this first, then you get that. So there are all these different little tactics we can use. People with dogs will often use that, like, listen to me first, and then I'll let you chase the squirrel, but you'll be on a leash, so you can't catch it, but that's the idea. Yeah. So we can apply the same thing to cats. If you do this first, so you get them to do something really easy outside, and then you kind of say, okay, go, you know, giving them the opportunity to sniff. And then they realize that doing the work actually predicts something good instead of the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, the application is always harder than the, 1 or 2 sentences I give you. You have to make sure the behavior is really easy, because otherwise, just something super simple, and then you let them sniff, and then super simple, and then you let them do their thing. Super simple, keep building on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to have to try all these things. This is great. Another problem that I know that comes up a lot, and actually a couple of people have mentioned it in my Facebook group in the last week, is that their cat, they have a hard time finding a treat that their cat will respond to or train to, or their cat's not food motivated.
Yeah.
What tips do you have for finding a treat that your cat will work for, or if your cat isn't even interested in treats at all?
Yeah, I mean, the whole food thing is a big, big, big project. When people say that to me, it's a project, and I try to figure out, what are you feeding your cat as a starting point, because everyone feeds their cat something different, and behind the scenes, it could be the issue. So if people are leaving their cat's food out all day, that is going to decrease food motivation. So that's always the first thing I always try to find out, like, put your cat's food away. Do not leave it out. They need small scheduled meals. And then what are they feeding? If they're feeding dry food, I will always encourage people to switch to wet food and use the dry food for training. Mm-hmm. I use dry food for training. It's easy. It's cheap. The pieces are the right size. Like, it's just such an easy switch, except if your cat won't eat wet food. But if your cat won't, there's so many different tricks and stuff. But one of the things I've started talking a bit more about is using freeze-dried. If people can get their cats to eat freeze-dried and then add water gradually, that's one way to get your cat to go from eating dry food to wet food. So like, it's kind of like training. It's a step-by-step thing. So I'll usually say, if your cat's only eating kibble, can we add some freeze-dried as a topper to the kibble? From that, can we add some water to the freeze-dried? From that, can we get to your cat eating wet food? Yeah. It's like, we just have to keep trying to take the cat on a little bit of it's like a training journey, on a little bit of a journey of putting things together. And really, you can look at your own behaviors to kind of understand how some of this works. Like, imagine you don't like salad, but you like dressing. In the beginning, you can put a lot of dressing on your salad to like trick yourself into liking it. And over time, you can add less dressing. So, I mean, there are all these little things you can do. But what I wouldn't say to someone is to give up on motivating your cat. I would say, that's one thing I wouldn't say. I also wouldn't tell people to keep trying different things, because I actually don't think that's the best advice. I will usually try to figure out from what their cat is already eating, what is the next step. So like, oftentimes when people say to me, well, my cat doesn't like wet food, I'll try to find out what are they feeding their cat? What is the protein in the dry food? If it's chicken, and we're trying to get your cat to a chicken wet food, how can we take them from one step to the other? Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't make sense to me that a cat that eats dry food with chicken wouldn't eat plain chicken pieces. Do you see how I kind of put this together? I know it sounds abstract for people, but your cat is eating dry food. It has chicken in it. We should be able to get them to chicken pieces. We should be able to add moisture to that. We should be able, and it's all just a really gradual process.
Yeah.
So I know people just expect me to say, well, we can train with this, we can train with toys or something, but I'm not going to say that, because the truth is the easiest way to train a cat is with food. Every animal needs to eat. Your animal already eats food. So we've got to be able to work with that and just keep working with it until we get your cat to a place that we have more of a variety. But I do believe it's possible. We just have to peel away the layers and try to understand, because again, we're going back to, is it a thing of pickiness? Is it the cat isn't is it the texture? Because for some cats, they're not, it's scary. Like imagine going to a foreign country and we're trying to eat food and we don't know what it looks like. We don't, it's scary, right? So you try to understand what is the reason behind it. And then we also, I don't know, behind the scenes, how hard that person has tried to introduce, what are people doing? Are they just putting the food out for one day and then saying my cat doesn't like it, it's garbage? I don't know. So like I said, this is a big project, but I don't, trust me, it's kind of my least favorite project because it's it's complicated. And I hate the amount of work it is that we need to get that person there. But I will say that whenever people come into my class, I am 100% committed to helping them food motivate their cat. And I have been successful, almost sometimes too successful, because people will come back and say, well, now my cat wants to eat all the time. And I don't know what to do. So you can kind of, it gets complicated with food. But I do believe that every cat can be motivated by food. And I would encourage people to not give up, but to see if they can make the links between where they want their cat to be and where their cat is now. Even something as simple as adding some moisture to dry food can get your cat used to a bit of more of a wet texture. Think about how you can get your cat from A to B and break them down into tiny steps and go with that.
Yeah. Great info. I that's never a question I can answer. Thankfully, I guess all of my cats are highly food motivated.
Yeah, I know. I've always had food motivated pets too, almost too much.
Yes.
They just love food. So, and I get it's frustrating for people. But again, if we peel away the layers, I believe that every cat can be introduced to new food and is fundamentally food motivated. They all have to eat. Yeah. So we usually can find something to work with.
Yeah.
But basic training, like clicker training, in order for it to be effective, you do need food. Sometimes I'll see people say, oh, you can use toys. They'll leave comments on my account. And it's not really. You can use a variety of rewards, but when you're getting down to the nitty gritty of teaching a very complicated behavior, it's just so much easier with food. Food is a very predictable reward.
Yeah. Well, I'd be interested to know what all of the viewers, what their cats are like. Let us know, is your cat food motivated or not? And what treats do you use when you train your cat? I'll be interested to see what you guys have to say. But we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic I wanted to cover was training multiple cats at a time, because I know a lot of people have more than one cat, and I have 7, and I have never, I don't train them at the same time. I take one out at a time. I put the others back in the bedroom, but I would like to be able to get to that point where I can have more than one. And I know a lot of people in my community would like to do that as well. What tips do you have for that?
So I try to set up the classroom like each cat has their own chair, like students in a class. It's the same way as managing, how a teacher would manage a classroom. Each cat has a chair, and we teach them to sit and stay on their chair, and they get treats for sitting and staying. And then you start to work with one cat while the other cat gets treats for sitting and staying. And you can pick easy behaviors to start to do on the chair, or you can start working one on the floor while the other stays on the chair. I do have a YouTube video that I just actually put on with the chair training, and I do show working with multiple cats. But so that's one strategy. I also use the snuffle mat. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like the mat. Yeah. So you put treats in it, and I put those on the chairs. So when you put the treat down, you bury it in the chair, and then it takes the cat a lot longer to eat it, to find it and eat it. So that's my other strategy. I think food puzzles and chairs together, when you use those two systems, you can have success. But I think you have to start working with each cat independently first, because otherwise they need to, when you put the chairs together, you want to make sure that they already have that foundation.
Yeah, so they need to already have like the place skill, like sitting in a place, because I know when I've tried to do multiple cats, I haven't done the place skill. I need to, but yeah. If I have more than one cat, I'll train one, and then the other one just tries to steal the treat and sit still. It's like, I want the treats. It's like a free for all.
It can be a bit nuts. I can only imagine with having 7, but but yeah, like start by just teaching them to jump on and off the chair, then if you have a snuffle mat, put it on the chair. So you start putting treats in the snuffle mat on the chair. The cat's going to be like, wow, and I'm on this chair, there's a snuffle mat and I get treats, I'm going to stay here. And then you could use your clicker to let the cat know that staying on the chair is the correct behavior. And then from there, you are going to you could practice like just leaving the room for a second, coming back, feeding them on the chair, leaving the room for 2 seconds, leaving the room, and just even talking to the other cat. See if you can reinforce staying. So you're like, talking to Jones, and then you go and you feed the other cat, and you just keep adding to it until eventually you can bring out the other cat and then ask them to go on their chair, and then they both are getting treats. I mean, training is just about enrichment, so it's not really a big deal if you don't get that far, right? Like, it's just fun. See if you can accomplish it. I mean, it'd be a fun photo at the very least to see if you can get them both sitting on their own chair, right, side by side, ready for school.
Yeah. For sure. Cool. Well, thanks again for the tips. So this is just a fun question. I know you have all these kinds of awesome tricks that you've done with Jones. What is your favorite trick that you've taught Jones?
My favorite trick. What is my favorite trick? I don't know. My favorite trick is always the one I'm working on.
What are you working on right now?
So I am working on like shoulder cat right now, which I think is fun. And it's also just fun because my husband makes fun of me. So but he secretly wants to do it. I know he does. He's laughing. He just like even saying the word shoulder cat, it's just funny.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I live in a building, so I'm outside training my cat. Like, it's weird. And doing shoulder cat, you got to have a bit of a sense of humor about it. Like, I wish I had a quiet yard where I could do all this stuff, but I don't.
Yeah.
So, the 48 other people that live, or however many live in the building, are basically exposed to what I'm doing at all times.
And maybe you're inspiring them to go with their cat and start training.
I don't know. But shoulder cat, like, it's fun. And so we've been practicing that. Working on the hand trick. So jumping on my hands. So that's a hard one. So we've been practicing that. And we haven't gotten there yet. I've been like experimenting with different things, like putting on oven mitts. So my hands were bigger.
Yeah.
My husband wasn't impressed with that. So that had to stop. So then I switched to mittens because I think Jones doesn't really like putting his paws on my hands, but if it's something, I can teach him to touch his paws to the mitts, put them on my hands. It just makes it a little easier. So plus, like, it makes them seem a little bit bigger. So we've been working on that. Those are kind of, every trick I work on becomes my new favorite. And honestly, when we're done, I'm kind of like, it's like finishing a puzzle. There's like some sort of good feeling you finished it, but then you're like, okay, I need another puzzle now. It's fun to have a project that's got little pieces in it, and you put all the pieces together and it turns into something amazing. But then you're like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
I think that happens with people. They're like, they don't know what to train their cat. And so I think people do enjoy having, sort of a goal that they're working on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I guess we'll go and get into some of the comments that have been coming through, or the questions that have been coming through in the comments. Stephanie asked about chaining behaviors. Should you click after each behavior or at the completion of the chain?
Should you click out? Well, in order to build a chain, you need to have every behavior very solid. So that would be, you've taught every behavior, and then at the end, you would click only at the end of the chain. But to build the chain, you would be putting so say you had a chain of like 3 or 4 behaviors, you'd put the last ones together, click and treat, and then you'd add the third in. So people probably don't really know what a chain is, but like a chain is when you want to put many behaviors together. But the best way to teach that is to teach them, we call it back chaining. So if you, let's say a good example is agility. Let's say you have 3 or 4 things in your house set up to do agility, like a tunnel, a jump, a chair, and okay, we'll say 3, a tunnel, a jump, and a chair. And you want to do it in the order of tunnel, jump, chair. You would teach the jump, chair first. And so you would do jump, chair, click, jump, chair, click, jump, click and treat. Sorry, you should always say treat after click, jump, chair, click and treat. And then you would add in tunnel, jump, chair, click, treat.
Oh,
Does that make sense? Yeah. You work backwards because the last one of the chain is the one that's most reinforced. So the animal knows to complete the whole chain because they're going to get their treat. So if the cat knows they always get the treat on the chair, then you can just keep adding to the chain. They're like, oh yeah, I just got to get to that chair.
Yeah.
And so they speed through the steps to get to the chair, basically. So, but yeah, you'd want to click at the end. Just make sure all the behaviors are very solid first.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question. It said, my cat and I have been leash training in the backyard, but now he also meows a lot, asking to go out. I do my best to ignore. Any tips for my sanity?
Yeah. The struggle is real with this one. And I admit, like, my cat likes going outside and it is hard. And yeah, you don't want to reinforce the behavior by letting your cat outside. And I think a lot about this too. Like, is it better to have your cat on a set schedule versus just walking whenever you feel like taking them? So I've experimented with both of those. And I mean, I am a person who likes the routine, and I've always walked my dogs at the same time. So for me, taking Jones out always does happen at the same time. And so I think that helps him kind of relax because he knows when he's going to go outside and he'll show up around that time. But it does make it harder because he will show up like a half an hour earlier. And then if he shows up and I take him out, he now gets rewarded, right? Like rewarded for showing up. So it is a complicated one. But overall, what works for me is taking him out at the same time so he has the routine, but helping him stay calm on the other times with training and food puzzles and the strict routine, which, like I said, is usually he sleeps, between the 11. So we have a very strict routine, but the stuff that I do to help him calm down would be the food puzzles and the training. And I know this sounds, of course she's going to say that, but training really does tire them out the most. I really, truly, fundamentally believe that. When I started training way back when, it was with my dog who was aggressive, and it was hard to take him outside in downtown Toronto. And I was looking for ways to tire him out. And that's where, I started using clicker training for his aggression. And then I just saw the change in his behavior, and I started teaching him all the tricks as well because I wanted to have something in the house to do. And it would take 10 to 15 minutes of training, and he would be so much more tired and relaxed. I see the same thing with Jones. He could be super annoying and want to do stuff all the time, but when I start doing training with him, after about 5 or so minutes, he's like, oh, fine. And he goes and lies down. So I do believe training gives you the most kind of bang for your buck if you have a high energy cat. And I also think of food puzzles like changing the chapter. When your cat comes in from a walk, I don't expect that they're going to be tired like we would want them to be. And sometimes that can be because of overstimulation. They just had so much, it's kind of like going to a party and you come home and you're like, I just saw all this amazing stuff. So I do believe the food puzzles, like the snuffle mat, is a good way to calm them down, that sniffing, searching, calming kind of activity. So I try to use a lot of that to help him. So to answer, getting back to that question, I know it's a hard one. I don't specifically think that keeping to the routine does help me personally, but I'm not like totally committed to telling people they have to walk their cat at the same time every day. But consider trying it, and then use all the other tools to help keep your cat calm. So the training and food puzzles can go a long way for that.
Yeah. Awesome.
But it is hard. I do know, I hate saying to people, like, are you going to like leash, if you recommend leash walking their cat and then their cat turns into a monster, you feel so bad.
You
created this monster. So it's hard. It's a hard one.
Yeah, that is a hard one. I know that's one that comes up a lot, is like, my cat's constantly asking to go outside now.
Yeah. And you don't want to tell people to do it, because if that happens, but some people have a catio, which I think is a nice option. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if you have one. I do not have one. Yeah.
We built one last year. It's the best. It's
the best.
Right? The cats love it. And you put them out there and they get their.
I mean, again, peeling away the layers, you don't know what's going behind people in people's houses. But if they have the option of having a catio, I think that I would feel more comfortable saying, leash walk your cat, and then put them in the catio if they are, if they're annoying. But I don't have a catio, so I have to go outside to entertain him or train or do the food puzzle thing.
Yeah. Next question from Grace. How would the trigger training work with a scary noise instead of a scary sight? Her cat Joey has a terrible fear of sirens. We've tried playing it on a video in the house to desensitize. Is there anything else we can do?
I mean, that is definitely a good step. I would probably, if there was a next step, if that was working, I would say, like, if you could have your door open of your house, like harness on, but you're just inside the house, and then feeding. So like it's a little bit louder. And then again, doing it on the porch and that sort of thing. We had a garbage truck like fear, like Jones was sensitive to that. And what will happen is he will back away with his leash, like he'll, and I'll give him a bit of freedom. So I will try to move as far away as possible from the sound. And I will always feed him that special thing that he loves. Like I'll give him a churro outside if a truck goes by. So the distance is important. The food is important, but I know it's hard to get the distance when they're coming right by you. So again, like where the starting point is in your house. So that's great that you're starting there. If there's if you can take it a bit louder and more realistic, like the front door, that would be really good. So, but it is hard because I guess you can't really predict when, like I would probably try something that's more predictive, like a garbage truck. It's not as loud as a siren, but you could probably still practice. See if you could get the cat to, you're in the house and you're feeding them food when allowed, like when the garbage truck goes by. But yeah, the sirens are hard because you can't really predict them. So all you could do is kind of hear the sound and then go to the door and open it. You'd have to obviously get your cat on the harness first, and then feed them food, because you want to make that pairing that when you hear the harness, when you hear the siren, good things happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a harder one. I'm trying to think if we've ever even had a siren go by us while we've been out, and I don't think we have had. And now I'm like, oh no, yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, we have them go by our house a lot. We live across the street from like a retirement community. And unfortunately, there are ambulances that go there a lot, and it's super noisy when they come by.
Yeah.
The cats are actually, because of that, they're kind of desensitized to sirens.
Well, that's it. If it's outside your house, I mean, the best thing is when these triggers happen right outside your house, so you can practice with them and kind of introduce your cat to it. Because what you don't want to happen is the trigger happens when you're far from home and your cat doesn't, know what to do or where to hide and that sort of thing. So I feel like what would happen if you keep doing it by your house, if there's a way to do it that way and you're feeding them, that soon what's going to happen is it's not going to be a thing that much. They're going to be like, oh yeah, there's that really loud noise and it goes by and I get treats and nothing happens. So we're all good. Then when you get a little further from home, that connection remains. Oh yeah, there's that loud noise again. And it's not as much of a big deal.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, another question on the topic of training in a multi-cat household. Are there good tricks that you recommend teaching that will help cats bond? My cats get along fine, but it'd be fun to train together.
I'm trying to think what people have taught, like teaching cats to put one arm around, like one paw around the other. I've seen people do that, or like give them a kiss. So like you could put the target stick kind of near each other and they both have to touch it with their nose, which would be seen like a kiss, could be cute. What else? I mean, anything that would get them to interact, I think would be sitting on the same chair for sure would be something you could do. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what other ones I've seen people do. Anything though, like really at the same time, if they're training together, they are going to bond better and watching each other. They can learn from that. Social learning does happen. So all of it is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of those things, you have to just get creative and think. I only have one cat, so I'm not that well versed. I have to rely on like what other people have done.
Yeah. Maybe you need another cat, Julie.
I do. I really do. It's sad, but we just we had 2 dogs and we just put one of them down a few weeks ago. So it's been like 3 weeks. So now we just have 1 dog. So things are different in our house because that's never been an option before with having those 2 dogs that didn't like cats. I mean, Jones to me was just like this personality that he likes dogs. I mean, how often do you find a cat like that? But now that there's only 1 dog, we'll see. I'd love to foster one day and train kittens. Like I would love to do more stuff with kittens, obviously. Yeah. Because I don't have any content on kittens. I have nothing because I don't have any kittens. So.
Val would like to know, what is the difference between your online clicker training course versus your YouTube videos, and is your snuffle mat available to Canadian customers? You're in Canada, so I assume it probably is.
It's actually not.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's really hard to get them to send us the snuffle mats. They're from the States and it's really hard to get them across the border. So we have a fulfillment center in the States. It's just easier. So unfortunately, no. That doesn't mean it's no forever, but because I'm always working on improving our shipping and fulfillment, but it is a thing when you're in Canada.
Yeah.
The YouTube channel. So usually when people go from the YouTube channel is like, I like to think of it as people go there and learn about the methods and try a few things out with their cat. But then if they get stuck and they need help or they want a roadmap, that's where they come into the class. Because in the class, we kind of do more of, do this first and then you can get help. And I think I didn't actually realize this, but I know now a big part of why people like the classroom is just to read everyone else's questions, because usually your question is asked there and you get to see what other people are struggling with and stuff. So you can read, sometimes like there'll be, I don't even know, for some lessons there might be like between 20 to 50 questions that you can actually, oh yeah, I had the same problem too. A lot of people have the same problem. So you can just see the answer. Oh yeah, that was happening to me. And now, so yeah, but mostly what I like to say is you get support in the class. Mm-hmm. That's the big thing, which, it is pretty, like, support does take a lot of time. And I don't think I do a good enough job selling that to people, but sometimes it will take me like 20 to 30 minutes to answer one of those questions.
Yeah.
And when you, you can like I try to really help people, because it's very important to me that they're successful. Mm-hmm. So I recognize that I have to offer the support to make sure that people, the worst thing for me would be someone's like, I tried cat training and it didn't work. I don't want anyone to ever say that. Yeah. So I say every cat is trainable, and I'm here to help everyone train their cat. That's the goal. So no one walks away because it would be so against my mission if someone was like, I tried it and it didn't work.
Yeah. So with the course, they get a little bit of personalized attention.
Yeah. If they have a question, they will get an answer.
Yeah.
And mostly I answer about everything, because I feel bad when I know I don't have enough content yet. Like a lot of the stuff we were talking about today with the triggers. And we are going to have a leash walking course. So I will say that, and it will include that stuff that I'm saying. Awesome. It's something I've been working on and stuff. So there will be that information. But right now, up until this point, anyone who's ever asked me any question about leash walking their cat has gotten the answer in class. Like I will always answer every question. Because I feel bad. Like I know behind the scenes, there's a person who's trying to train their cat, and I want them to be successful. And,
that's awesome.
Spread the message that cats are trainable. So. Yeah.
I'm going to drop a link to Julie's cat training course in the comments for anyone who is interested. I just dropped that on both Facebook and YouTube. So if you guys are interested, you can follow that link and learn more about her class. It is awesome. I will say I love it.
Thank you.
We have one more question from Suzette. She says her cat Pixel eats grass. She tried buying her cat grass, hoping she'd prefer that and lose her taste for the outside grass, but it hasn't helped. She obsessively eats it, and so it's not even fun to take her out anymore. Do you have any tips for like discouraging cat grass eating?
Yeah, I mean, when you go outside with your cat on a leash walk, I do encourage people to set the tone for how they want that walk to go. So, and I'll always go back and draw on my experience walking dogs. But let's say I got to the park and I just dropped all their leashes, all 6 dogs, and I said, go do what you want to do. That would be a disaster. So when I went to the dog park, I would drop their leashes, but I would immediately engage them in playing with a ball or giving them a treat or getting them to follow me. When you go outside with your cat, try to set the tone as well with them that this is what we do outside. This is whether you start like even doing something as simple as like jumping on and off an object, you're going to make that connection with them there that this is what you do when you go outside. And soon that will become a thing, and your cat will even look at you like, okay, what are we doing? If you go outside and with your cat and the idea is, you're on your own, do what you want, chances are they're going to find their own job and you might not like their job. So when I go out with Jones, I do try to set the tone of our walk, which is attention. And, whether it's even like just following me, it's always about that connection with me. I don't want him. And he does like eating grass too. And I will let him eat grass. But I usually started off with trying to get the attention first, so that, I have a little bit more control over him through the walk. And, he doesn't just go outside and do his own thing. Mm-hmm. And like, sometimes, I'm lazy and I want to just let him do his own thing, but I generally regret it. And I find when I put the time in, like when we worked on Shoulder Cat, we had fun versus like, I let him do his own thing. He eats grass, he gets tangled, he tries pulling all over the place. Like, it's just not as fun. Yeah. When we do Shoulder Cat, we had fun. I taught him a good skill. When he came inside, probably was more tired because we did actually work on stuff. Mm-hmm. So it is worth it to go outside and engage with them, even though, it might be easier to be like, do what you want, and I'll just sit here and look at my phone. It is better, and it will change. You will have a better walk overall. I mean, I do the same thing when I walk my dogs. I kind of zone out, or my dog now, but I kind of zone out and I'll look at my phone. But then I find I get irritated at the dog because they're pulling in different direction.
Yeah.
So, I think it's just a lesson in like try to stay connected with them. And then you're going to find that they're going to do these be annoying behaviors less and less. So.
Yeah, makes sense. One more question came through. Is it possible to ask questions about tricks that aren't in the course yet when you enroll in cat school?
Yeah, usually I do. I mean, I always answer the questions. I hope from the fundamentals that I give people that they have a good idea of how to teach some of the new stuff too. Like they'll be able to sort of think, because a lot of the stuff is the same. So usually I just have to give a few steps or directions. I'll always have a resource too. Like sometimes I'll be able to direct you to a dog video where they use the same thing, the same technique. So yeah, there's always ways. I usually do have some information I can do, to get you to the next step.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I have dropped the link to Julie's cat school training class, and I also dropped a link to her snuffle mat because some people were saying they were interested in that.
Yeah.
But we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Julie, can you tell us like where we can find you on social media and stuff? I know you've got the YouTube channel and Instagram, right?
Yep. The YouTube channel is a great starting point for people. And I like to say the YouTube is great to start to learn about training. The Instagram is for inspiration to see what other people are doing. And, I'll put some challenges there. I try to put challenges to encourage people to train as well. So, and then there's our website.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how to find us. And I do the DMs on Instagram if people want to ask me questions too.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm less responsive to questions on YouTube though.
It's hard to keep up with all the places.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I know.
It's not happening all the time, but Instagram is usually a good one to catch me on because I'm on it too much.
Well, I like Instagram too. That's probably my favorite one.
Yeah. Instagram's fun for me to look and see what everyone else is up to as well.
Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap things up. Before we do, I mentioned earlier that I had an intro video that I didn't press live on. So I'm going to play that at the end because some of the viewers, their cats are featured in the intro video.
Yeah, it's so cute. I was really enjoying it. I got to see it.
Yeah. Well, you guys will get to see it too. I'm going to tell you about next month's episode, and then I'll play the intro video at the end to close things out. But thanks again, Julie, for being with us tonight and sharing your expertise. I know I learned a lot. I'm sure hopefully all the people that had questions got what they needed and know where to go to find you if they have any more questions.
Thank you. And thank you for everything that you do as well. I know you work hard to encourage people to also do the same mission, do more with your cat, which ultimately, is the bigger goal. So thank you for all your stuff as well.
Well, thank you. For anyone watching, if you want to continue the discussion on anything cat adventure related, join our Facebook group, KittyCatGO Adventure Team. Our next month's episode of KittyCatGO Live will be Wednesday, May 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And I'll be chatting with Yaz Nakbindi from Chirpy Cats. She's also from Canada, actually. And we're going to be talking about catios and gardening for your cat. So that'll be a fun episode. I'm going to drop the link to her website in the comments as well, because if you want catio inspiration, that is the place to go. Her catio is like the stuff of dreams.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I'm really looking forward to that episode. But we're going to go ahead and close things out, and I will play the intro video. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, whether you're here live or watching the replay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.